So I was just sitting at my desk waiting for life to happen. When it hit me, it's been right in front of me this whole time. Why not design a super playful brand for my little guy? Hey there, it's Amira and itsbossin is my creator space where I share with you my graphic design journey. So today we'll design a cat food brand from scratch. So in this first episode, we'll brainstorm some ideas, sketch the logo concepts, design the logo suite, and then create the color palette. In the next episodes, we'll illustrate together some fun cat scenes, which we'll use in the packaging design. And next, we'll be creating some mockups and finally wrap things in a professional Behance post and social media carousels. So you'll pretty much see the whole unfiltered process. So let's dive in. So I headed over ChatGPT and after using some harsh language, I got him to create me a quick brief of what cat food brand they would look for if they were my client. So to give you a quick intro, we're designing a cat food brand called Posy. Its personality is bold, playful, and cute. The brand tone and messaging is energetic and vibrant to appeal to Gen Z and millennials who treat their pet like a family member or their kid. The kind of audience that value joy and play and they are so loving. Basically me. So first things first, we'll start brainstorming some ideas. I scrolled through Pinterest and aside from the fact that most of them were dogs food, I find that integrating a paw into the logo is so overused. Some logos have turned a letter into a paw, and some of them have really interesting ways of adding it. But anyways, I'm going for a playful font, but one that is not so bubbly. So I'm crossing out the extremely rounded fonts and the idea of having the letter A represent a paw. I've seen that like twice and I haven't even scrolled down this far. I'm not sure about illustrating a cat itself in the logo. I feel like it's so cliche. But for now, let's jump into the next stage, which is designing the logo. So I'm right now scrolling through different sites and I'm looking for a handwritten font that feels playful and a little bit bubbly, keyword little. So I downloaded 21 fonts and I'm going to Illustrator to create a new artboard and then I'll type in Posy. Then duplicate this once, and using Ctrl plus D, I'll duplicate this several times to try out all the other fonts. So speeding up this part of the video because that's just me choosing the font among 63 other fonts. You wouldn't want to watch that, trust me. I usually keep my options narrow, but I don't know why I couldn't resist the urge to try out all fonts. So I want to rearrange all these fonts in a way that I keep the bubblier fonts in the first artboard, the thinner ones on the right artboard, and the more energetic ones down at the bottom, the third artboard. They're all handwritten fonts essentially, but you can sense different vibes from each font. So if I were to narrow down my choices, I gotta narrow it down to which vibe should this brand give in the first place. Doing this, I'm starting to realize that the thinner fonts on the second artboard don't quite align with the creative direction we're going for. So I'm left to choose between the fonts on the first and the third artboard. I had a few ideas in mind that I want to roughly try. First one is to customize the top of one of the letters into cat ears. But this one could be a little tricky because we don't want the letter to look like it has some spikes on top. I was also thinking of turning the W into a cat's mouth. I thought that would be really cute. And another idea is to turn the descender and the tail of the Y into a cat's tail. So these are just some ideas I'm exploring, and I'm definitely not gonna use them all in one logo. That would just look so bad. So again, this is just me playing around and exploring all options. So fast forward in this video, I narrowed down my choices to these three fonts. That's not actually narrow, I know, but I'm quite torn between them, so I think I'll try each font with different ideas, and then I'll decide between them. So I copied them in a new artboard, and then I clicked on type, and then create outlines. And then I'll click on Ungroup from the Object tab. This way, I'll be able to edit each letter distinctly. I like the terminal of the A in the second font, so I'm thinking of drawing it in the first font. I'm just taking this one as a reference. It's important to keep in mind how the thickness in this typography varies along each letter. So I'm trying to implement that by keeping the shoulder of the A a little bit thinner than the terminal. Earlier, I told you about the idea of making W a cat's mouth. I think the shape of the W here in this font is perfect for it because the font overall is not so condensed. I personally think it would certainly be weird if we have a broad cat mouth in the middle of a condensed font, if you know what I mean. So I'm using the pen tool to draw just half of the cat's mouth. We'll duplicate this in a sec, but first I wanna draw his cute tiny little nose using the square tool. And then using the direct selection tool, I'll select one of the anchors and delete it in order to create a perfect triangle. To visualize how this looks, I'm using the mirror option from the Object tab. But I'm actually going to just duplicate it by dragging it while pressing Alt plus Shift, and then I'll click on Reflect. The reason why I duplicated it in this way, then reflected it instead of just going with the mirror option, is because if I were to go with the mirror option, then I'd have to click on Expand Appearance, and then strokes will be outlined as shapes instead of editable strokes, which we don't want. What we want instead is to be able to edit these strokes later on, right? Let's increase the size of his nose a little bit. Okay. Now we want to add these little dots around his nose so that it makes more sense. I have an idea of adding whiskers on either side of Posy. Throughout this video, you'll notice that every time I want to try something new, I duplicate the previous version instead of adjusting it because I don't know if you'd relate to this at all, but I sometimes get paralyzed when designing and I feel like whatever I'm gonna try next would look bad and I gotta settle on how far I've come or that I wouldn't do anything as good as this work. And this is a totally poor mindset and a self-limiting one because you always have to push yourself to your limits. And make sure you've tried to unlock all other doors before settling on the one you unlocked first. So, making several drafts encourages the side of me that likes to try new ideas and play around and get creative. I'm right now trying to practice going an extra mile with whatever creative project I'm working on, be it graphic design, video editing, or even cooking. I feel like this mindset will speed up your growth rate. Let me know if this is something you believe in too. Okay, back to the logo. I want to add some energy to it because you see, some cats are really crazy. Like, think black cats knocking things off the table and jumping into your covers. I personally feel like cats add so much life to this world. So, this is something I want to put in my mind. I have an idea of making the logo art at the bottom. If you're wondering how to add that grid I have on the background, you will find the Show Grids option in the Window tab. At this step of logo design, I like to keep my grids to make sure everything is well aligned and balanced. So here you will find the A and the S on the same level, and the P and the Y are tilted at the same angle to balance things out. So I want to try out this second font I liked. So I'm dragging it out to a new artboard, and I was thinking of drawing like half of a cat's face trying to peek into the table. So let me sketch this idea so roughly. We can start by drawing a line to represent the front view of the table, and then draw like a rough semicircle for the cat head, and then draw its little alien eyes and its ears, and then finally its nose and whiskers. Anyways, I actually like how it's going. I'm thinking of turning the descender and the tail of the Y into a cat's tail. So first I'll use the puppet tool to just tilt that descender a little. Ignore how distorted it is, we'll fix that in a sec. And I'll draw the tail of the cat. I'm making it so minimalist, of course, like 3 smooth triangular jags will do. Okay, so I really like this idea of having a cat peek into the table like it's so excited to have its meal. But something is really off. I'm not so confident about this, so I'm gonna try adding this illustration to that third font we left. Yeah, I actually like this one better. Please ignore how the cat is not centralized here, I'm just testing out the borders. I'm thinking of making this Y as a tail too, like I did with the previous font, but this time I'll keep the original shape of the tail and I'll just manipulate the terminal. Now looking at it, I want to add a little nose at the apex of the W to make it a little more playful. Okay, now I'm so torn between these three. I'll start by eliminating the second one because I'm not sure about the typography, though I like the Y scale so much. I think the first one wins because when I started thinking about it, it aligns with my mood board more than the third concept does. Like, the first concept is bolder, definitely more playful, appealing more to Gen Z. So here's our winner. Now let's jump into the third stage, which is creating the brand palette. Describing Posy as energetic and vibrant, I started looking for yellow and orange tones contrasted with dark violet. And I'm thinking of adding pink blush too to represent the loving air between cats and their owners. I chose blue as well to complement the orange tones. I'm not really sure if I'm gonna add that, but I'll keep it just as a secondary option. I tried each color in different ways. Among these color combos, I truly like the first one. So in designing the packaging, I think I'll use the dark violet for the logo across all packagings. We'll be changing the packaging background color, of course, for each flavor, so this is something we gotta keep in mind. In the next episode, we'll start drawing the illustrations to incorporate them in the front side of the packaging. If you enjoyed watching my design process so far, please thumbs up this video and I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you so much for watching.